With Star Wars Acolyte's surprise cancellation, or lack of a continuation due to less than stellar numbers, it's quite interesting that this new Star Wars series is moving forward. Welcome to Star Wars Uplink. So, obviously, we know all the drama with Star Wars The Acolyte. There's quite a bit of it, and it varies. I personally wasn't a fan of the actual story it was telling. I think it was very messy and was overall poorly written in terms of the structure. Obviously, the individual scenes themselves could be well written, and I wouldn't argue that piece, but I'd say the overall journey and story, especially with the characters who were great, wasn't well thought out. And I think that was mostly what did it for me. And there's this broader subject that we won't get into this video of the lessening of the interest in Star Wars. But this new series, or at least this new rumored series / movie, I think is quite interesting when we look at it through that lens. Star Wars Skeleton Crew is coming out later this year. And honestly, I am very hyped for it because according to some rumors, which I would question the validity of now, apparently it wasn't testing well within Lucasfilm, and there was concerns around how much it represented the feel of Star Wars and all these various things. It has some huge directors attached to it and a great showrunner. There are a variety of people that have done incredible things working on this show. Not just the showrunner like we had in Acolyte, we have some big heavy hitters when it comes to the director's seat, including some already familiar to Star Wars, if you look at Bryce Dallas Howard. So what the heck am I talking about? Star Wars Skeleton Crew is going to heavily feature pirates. They've released some images now that we can see. They look great. I am very excited for this show, even more so now. But according to this listing on the casting of various projects within Hollywood, according to productionweekly.com, it lists a bunch of movies that are heading into production from September 19th, 2024. 144 listing of 35 pages. And this is usually something that lets people that are in the industry know what they could possibly apply for in terms of various roles and responsibilities. On this, though, listed down, almost hidden, we've got Star Wars New Jedi Order, which we already knew about, and then Star Wars Pirates. And I think this is an interesting direction to go in, with the Mandalorian introducing a new level of pirates in the Star Wars universe, but obviously Clone Wars introducing them in a big way with Hondo. This is quite fascinating because I feel like a lot of people enjoy the pirate stories. In my opinion, they didn't necessarily fit all that well in Mandalorian Season 3, but not necessarily for them just being pirates in the galaxy, mostly just how they showed up randomly and were immediately defeated as a distraction. That's my problems with it. But I think pirates in Star Wars is such a good direction to go. People love the bounty hunter perspective that the Mandalorian has, and Book of Boba Fett in a way. Everyone has always been interested in the idea of bounty hunting. And pairing Star Wars, which is already a foundation for homages of various different mediums, as well as various different genres within storytelling, I think it fits. I think the whole space western samurai story that Star Wars has been known for translates quite well into this idea of pirates and this idea of having something that is focused around this core belief. I do find it fascinating that this show hasn't even come out. We've had the reports that people within Lucasfilm were not necessarily all on board with it across the team. I think it's fascinating that we'd already see something on the Pirates front. Now, it may be due to Skeleton Crew, which is, from what we know, set around the same time as The Mandalorian and Ahsoka, or it could just be something that was already thought about with The Mandalorian after a lot of people's reactions to, obviously, the pirates in it. The good old, I don't know, like water plant dude with the beard type guy, that whole story, I think there's a lot of potential there. And with Star Wars Outlaws as well, this whole Star Wars community, I think, is primed for this idea of pirates in Star Wars. I personally would love to see it almost like treat the galaxy, treat space travel like this pirate ship. Like, treat it like the open seas and the Star Wars flight ships like the wind sails of pirate ships of old. And I think this idea, like having the galaxy as the open waters, and also having the core ideas of like Han Solo smuggling things in A New Hope, and that being his structure, bounty hunting being in there, this idea of almost too like having the open galaxy as the open sea, and then having the planets as the islands that contain the treasure, I think is just a fascinating idea, and I would love to see how they could do it in Star Wars. And I don't think it's subverting many expectations, because like I said before, Star Wars fits very well into this idea of classic structures in the story, but spun on their head because of the space aspect. Star Wars has never been a true sci-fi, it's more like a science fantasy fiction or fantasy science. Like it's not Star Trek. Star Trek focuses on this idea of how technology can adapt and change and evolve in the future, and how humanity adapts and changes to that technology, as well as like the political interest piece of Star Trek. Star Wars, on the other hand, is like, what can we do with a fantasy storytelling, like classic storybook stories, and bring it into this worn out scientific focus, like not really focused on, oh yes, let's explain how hyperspace and light speed works. No, that's not in Star Wars. Oh, we've got space whales. Like, yeah, we're not going to explain that one at all. That is the type of story. They use it as a foundation to tell stories within and expand outward into, but they do not explain any of the technology. And I think that's great. That's one of the things that's great about Star Wars, is this idea that we're mainly focused on characters and story, and it just so happens that there's technology to support that story. And I'm a big fan of it. And Westerns, I'm also a big fan of it. I love it when Star Wars goes Western. I think there's just something there that works so well. And obviously samurai being influenced by Westerns, it just adds to that piece. And then Star Wars inspired by all of them. Actually, I need to do further research, but it might be flipped. Westerns might be inspired by the samurai idea. I'll have to do some deeper digging on that. That's interesting. So there's this idea here that I think works so well with Star Wars, but I can understand and I empathize with the Acolyte fan who is frustrated that their show that has already been out has already been canceled, and then a show that hasn't even released has already the spin-off type show or movie. That's a little tough. And I understand, I'm sorry. I personally would rather see any type of show expanded deeper. But if they're going to continue this path forward, I think their focus needs to be on the Mandoverse. I think after Andor, the Mandoverse is going to be their focus, because that's the platform that they can expand most deeply into, and it attaches itself to The Mandalorian, which is already their big cash cow, at least from a marketing perspective. But let me know your thoughts on this idea. Would you love to see a pirate spin-off TV show? Let me know in the comments below. Check out our podcast, and may the Force be with you.